It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the Hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first and only podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
I think we're missing somebody.
Wait, hang on. Do you hear that?
What is that?
Oh man, sounds like that poop scene from Dumb and Dumber. What the heck?
You don't think the mic caught the tube trots, do you?
I tell you what, if it sounds like it, the tube trots is something going around right now in the 25th century.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, if you get a hold of some of that bad nutrient paste, you're going to be sitting on a toilet for about 72 hours.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Man.
That's not fun.
Wow. Okay. Well, if he joins us, that's fine. But if he's got some other sounds like he's kind of busy. So,
well, we will
man,
go on without.
Okay. Well,
What's going on? Everything good?
Yeah. So far, no tube trots here. Thank goodness.
So as of today, as we're recording, Star Wars Andor has dropped its first 3 episodes. I have not had a chance to watch it yet.
Well,
I'm really anxious to watch.
I have seen it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I watched it this morning.
Of
and
course.
Me and my wife are currently halfway through a rewatch for me. First time for her.
Okay, so no spoilers. Give me your first impression.
First impression is I'm really enjoying it so far. I think, especially now going back and revisiting it again, I think I like it more because it's one of those stories that just kind of plops you right down in the middle of it. I mean, Of course, you have some context. I mean, you know who Cassian Andor is, but you really don't know what he's doing at this stage. It says explicitly in the show. It starts 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, so we're 5 years out from A New Hope, and
putting us about 5 years from Rogue One.
Oh yes, same thing, and
okay.
And Cassian is we sort of get a feel of his day to day, and we get some looks back at his childhood, which is kind of interesting. It's a device that I think they're using very effectively so far in the show as like a flashback device.
Let me ask you a question. So, well, first off, how many episodes are in Andor?
There will be 12.
Okay, 12. So a quarter of the episodes just dropped. I'd say a significant chunk to set up the show with.
Yes.
Okay, so in those 3 episodes that you got to see, how do you think so far? I mean, obviously, we don't know if they're going to land the plane or not. Star Wars has been kind of iffy on their shows recently. Not all of them have been stellar like Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But how's it stack up against, like, so far Obi-Wan and the Book of Boba Fett?
Well, it certainly has the advantage that the Mandalorian had, in that we're dealing with mostly unknown quantities as far as characters go. With Boba Fett and Kenobi, those are 2 very kind of big characters in the Star Wars world. And you don't really have a lot of that baggage here, so you just kind of find yourself along for the ride. You don't have any expectations. Yeah. I mean, Cassian was one of the main characters of Rogue One, but, we don't know who this person is. And, there's not a whole lot of preconceived notions about him.
Right. To be fair, you had some familiarity with a lot of characters in Rogue One, but not really in depth. That's what I think what Rogue One was so successful with. It put you in that sweet spot of Star Wars timeline. Some characters you recognized if you watched the Clone Wars, but others were introduced, and I bought right into Rogue One. Rogue One being my fourth favorite Star Wars film of all time.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp.
I'm really looking forward to tackling this, and of course we're going to review Andor.
Oh, we can announce here, Matt, we will be doing the Cassian Chronicles the latest in our Chronicles series.
That's true.
So be looking for that. We're not going to do every single episode. We're going to kind of break it down. We may do 3 or 4 Cassian Chronicles throughout the course of this show, but yeah, so far I will say the first 3 episodes, they present sort of a completed arc. So they definitely, I know why they released 3 in a row, because it's almost like watching a movie, because you get a story that has a bit of a stopping point at the end.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so this was really a true preamble for the show.
Yes, I would say that. And it's hard to say that, it's like but so far I really like what I've seen, but right now it is definitely, we're in the beginnings. It's like we are preparing the meal. I don't know how the meal's going to taste, but right now it looks really good. What's in the oven? So
okay, so the ingredients look good. Could make one heck of a meal.
Heck yes,
let's see.
Absolutely, the show looks very cinematic, and it's more so, I think, than anything since The Mandalorian.
Oh man, I can't wait. And it's funny because with all these streaming shows coming out, with Star Wars Andor, with Willow coming out, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, did you watch the trailer?
Yeah, I think it looked great.
Yeah, it does.
It does
look
look great.
You are great. Oh yeah.
Willow is one of those movies that, you like it or you don't like it. There's not a lot of in between. There's not like people who waffle on it. And
yeah.
And I tell you, I was talking to one of our podcast friends, Deke, who who's the host of Sidetracked podcast, a fantastic podcast, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. Yes. This guy gets more interviews with some spectacular people. It's just outrageously amazing who he gets to talk to.
Yeah.
And if you haven't checked out his podcast, I highly recommend it. But, Deke was not excited about Willow. He didn't really take to it as a kid. And it's funny because I always kind of assume that people our age, and, Jared, you, myself, and Deke are all the exact same age. It's interesting how tastes do change. But I'm excited for Willow coming out. And it made me think about our discussion today. It brought me back, I should say, to a infamous encounter with Warrick Davis.
Oh, yes. Warrick Davis. Warrick Davis and I go way back, Matt.
What was it, 2005?
It was. It was 2005. It was no, wait. It was 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the summer of 2006.
It was a hot one.
It was hot. And at that time, Disney World was putting on these things every summer called Star Wars Weekends, where every weekend over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, they would host various Star Wars celebrities. They'd have Star Wars characters all over the park, Disney's Hollywood Studios. And it was generally like a Star Wars convention that was placed inside a theme park.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, you could get autographs and so forth, buy a lot of merchandise and that kind of thing. But one thing they did have at Star Wars Weekends, they had the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Star Wars edition, where because
is that show still on? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
I don't think it is. I know it continued for some time after Regis Philbin left, but I don't think it's on anymore.
I think it's fair to say in 2006 it was probably at its height of popularity.
Well, it was pretty popular,
and the studio was actually a pretty impressive studio.
Oh, it was an exact replica of the studio you saw on television. You had all these rows of seats that sort of funneled down into the main stage, and there on the main stage was the person asking the questions, and then you had the hot seat, which is where the contestant sat who was answering the questions. Now, for this particular now, of course, Hollywood Studios would do that. This was an attraction there, and you could go there daily and play it, but you would be, it would be like normal trivia questions. And instead of winning money, you would win various, Disney theme park prizes. But during Star Wars weekend, it was exclusively a Star Wars trivia contest. And so, and this is something that me and Matt and our friend Mike, the Sith Lord, not to be confused with Mike, who has the trots tonight. We went a couple of years, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. And me and Matt and Mike were at the studios one morning. We had gone there, drove over very early in the morning.
It was crack at dawn.
And I remember we would have Sith Lord was sitting in the back seat asking us. He had Star Wars Trivial Pursuit playing cards.
That's right.
And he would be quizzing us because one of our goals was we wanted to get into the hot seat in the Star Wars Millionaire game.
He was really like, he was on about it. He was serious.
Yeah. So, here we are. We're driving from Tampa to Orlando in the dark of the morning, and we're being quizzed on Star Wars trivia questions, which was quite fun. And so we get to this park, and we get there early, and on Star Wars weekends, they would have like stormtroopers up sort of walking on top of the buildings, like doing like banter and stuff. And it was kind of cool, But I do remember we were standing behind these people who we will refer to as specimens, who were up.
Can you describe what a specimen is for our listeners?
Well, a specimen is perhaps someone who, I don't know, perhaps is overly effuse in their fandom. A
little too overtly exuberant.
Overtly exuberant, yes, you could say that. Let's say, could we go so far as to say nerdy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when the nerds call you nerd, you're a specimen at that point.
And there's generally probably a lack of hygiene that goes along with this.
It's stale,
anyway,
stale milk smell.
Something like that. Well, we were behind this group of specimens.
Yes.
And I remember it being funny because before you're let into a Disney park, you're kind of stood behind these turnstiles if you're there before it opens. And these people in front of us were upset that they were opening other turnstiles first, and people were being let in before us. And
I mean, think about this in a civilized society. I mean, this isn't like a push button where all the turnstiles start to activate. They're manually going with a key to each turnstile and unlocking it. So, of course, you're going to have some open before the others.
Sure.
And I'd say we happen to be off-center to the right of where they started.
Yeah, because the people on our left were getting in first.
Right. Which makes sense because these are the first turnstiles that they are unlocking.
Yes. And, it's no big deal. But I guess on Star Wars weekends, there is some urgency to get to the line of the autograph that you want or to get in line for merchandise or what. We didn't really have that concern. We were just kind of there to take in the sights and sounds. So this guy in front of us was like, excuse me, this is not open.
But this is loud.
Yeah. He goes, our turnstile is not working.
Over here.
This turnstile is not working. I don't understand. And it was generally quite embarrassing.
I remember the look of the employee who was unlocking the gates, as in sequence as they went down. I remember him coming up to ours and having that look, and you have to think it was 9 a.m.
Yes.
Of like, you could just put in a bottle his look of just kill me now. This employee, that look of like all his life's choices are being like run through his head on how he got to this point with this guy yelling at him to let him in the turnstile. And
it was horrendous.
And I will say, and if I'm not mistaken, he was wearing a Yoda backpack.
He had a Yoda backpack, and one of the people with him had a giant tie-dye Jar Jar Binks shirt on.
That tells you everything you need to know right there.
That's it. Tie-dye Jar Jar Binks shirt. Say nothing else.
And they did the nerd shuffle as fast as they could as soon as that turnstile was open.
Yes.
We did see him and her throughout the day.
Oh yeah, they come back later, and it gave me some satisfaction to see them later, and we'll tell you about that when the time comes. But I do recall, and I do remember this. We decided to get in line to meet. It was Tamora Morrison on that day.
That's right. That's right.
He was there, and he was signing autographs and taking pictures. This was, of course, a decade and a half before he would do Book of Boba Fett. He was just there because he was Jango and the clones. But I thought he would be a cool one to get, So we were waiting in line, and I remember we were back behind like the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. And I remember taking pictures of you and Mike standing in front of the tank that was from Last Crusade.
Right.
Yes, and they do have screen-used vehicles from Last Crusade that are still there to this
I just
day.
took my family was there in January, and my son, I took him to the Indiana Jones show. He has not seen Indiana Jones yet, but he's familiar with it because unfortunately you can't keep pop culture away from kids with YouTube, so they see stuff. So I'm trying my best to try and like filter that, but he loved that show. And he loved everything about it, so I'm really excited that he's going to see Indiana Jones. So a little sidebar there.
That's awesome. Well, I still have. This was the day before cell phone cameras were really good, but I did have a digital camera, and I do still have those pictures somewhere of you and Mike standing in front of the tanks.
Oh, you got to get those.
But we were in line there, and then we were told, okay, from here on out, you're basically not guaranteed a Tamora Morrison meet and greet because all the spaces are basically taken up. And so we were like, oh, well, that sucks. I mean, you were free to wait to see if you could get a spot, but we were like, well, we're here. Let's go ride some rides and do some stuff. And so we left the line, and about this time, we saw that this was probably about 10 in the morning. Like the first Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Star Wars show was like at 10:30 or something like that.
Right.
We were very close to it. So I don't know, maybe it was Matt who suggested, hey, well, let's just go do the show now and see what's going on. And we're like, okay. So we went over to the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire theater, and we got a seat. And Matt, you could probably describe how they had this set up. Remember how you had to play along with, like, they had a little control panel on the arm of your chair.
So the way it worked was everybody in the audience played along, and that's how they chose their next contestant on the floor. And there was actually a leaderboard that you could track the entire time. So every seat had a number, and that was your assignment on the leaderboard, is your number of your seat. And as the question came up, you would answer. And actually, there was no one on the floor, come to think of it. It was only the host asking the questions for the first few rounds, right? And then you would just give them the leaderboard.
Well, generally what happened at Star Wars weekends is they would just pick a random kid to start the game because, they want to pick a kid.
Yeah.
And so the kid is in there, and the kid probably, doesn't know as much as nerds in their 30s. So what would happen is they would ask the kid the first few questions, and you would play along at your seat, and you had to be fast.
Yeah.
So they would, obviously, if you've seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you have A, B, C, or D. It's a multiple choice game.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as they put the questions up on a big screen, we would see them, and then you could start,
pounding that button,
doing Nintendo thumb on that button. You could spam it, and then as soon as it would allow you to vote, you'd be in there. So, as I recall, me and Matt, we held the first and second spots on that leaderboard the entire time that kid was playing, because they would. Every question, they'd pop the leaderboard up again, and you'd see where you ranked. And I remember it was always my seat and Matt's seat. And people around us would be going, "Hey, you guys are pretty quick. You guys are fast." So, anyway, this kid didn't last long. He lasted like 3 questions, and, he didn't use any lifelines, and he was out of there pretty quick.
Right.
So what happens is, when the person loses, well, the next person up on the leaderboard
takes the seat. That's right.
Goes to seat. And it just happened to be me, much to Matt's dismay.
Well, to be fair, the gulf between Jared and myself in this was, it was far. It was far.
Still impressive that Matt, there's, what, 200 people, 300 people in that theater?
Yeah, about 300 people, yeah.
So and the fact that me and you were 1 and 2 every time.
I did see, by the way, if down to our right was our specimen and his girlfriend or wife, whatever it was.
Yes.
And I don't know if they ever made the board or not, but he was not happy. He was not happy.
Yes, we saw them.
But no, it was. Let me tell you something. So when Jared's seat number was announced, as he was number 1, I have to tell you, it was like as if we all won. Like Mike Sith Lord and myself, we stood out of our chairs, we're screaming, yeah. Jared, stoic, stands up. He wasn't smiling. He was going down to win.
And something very important we left out.
What's that?
Who was sitting next to the contestant in the hot seat?
Well, was he always out there, or did they bring him out just for you? I thought they brought him out just for you.
No, he was down there for the initial player, the kid.
So we were very excited, actually, to see him, and which is kind of funny because at this point, he had done just a few small roles, and you might not even recognize him unless you saw movies like Willow. And Warrick Davis is sitting down there, and he was the Star Wars celebrity who was representing, and of course he played Wicket and several other characters in the prequels. And
yes,
but for us, we're like, oh my god, it's Warrick Davis, and it was cool. It was very cool.
And he was sitting down there.
Wait, real quick. Did the TV show? No, the show didn't come out yet. Life's Too Short, right?
No, that hadn't.
God,
that wouldn't be for another few years.
Oh, listen, everybody, but real quick, if you have not watched Warrick Davis's show, Life's Too Short, you are missing out a big chunk of your life right now. It is such a great show.
I usually don't advocate for this, but Matt is a big advocate for just putting stuff on YouTube and watching scenes. Just Google Warrick Davis, Liam Neeson, Ricky Gervais, and you will see one of the most awesome things.
Riddled with it. Oh my God, it's so great.
He's like, hello, Liam. We worked on Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, and then Liam Neeson goes, okay.
So good. It's so worth watching. Anyways, I'm sorry. So
No,
Warrick Davis is our Star Wars celebrity.
he is. He's sitting there next to me, and of course we have the game show host,
Right.
who was a very game show hosty guy.
Yeah, he's good.
And he's sitting down there, and he's like, hey, what's your name? He goes, where are you from? So I'm like, I'm Jared. I came all the way from Clearwater today. And he's like, oh, wow. And then I remember shaking Warwick's hand. And, of course, most people know Warrick Davis is a little person. But his hands, now I'm 6'1", like 250. I'm not a small person. And, I have pretty big hands. Warrick Davis's hands are bigger than mine. And it was very strange. But I remember shaking his hand, and he had, and me personally, I'm an Adidas brand loyalist, and I noticed he had on the coolest small Adidas shoes there, wearing his, jeans and his sports coat. But I was like, I think I actually whispered to him, I was like, I like your shoes. And he's like, oh, thank you. I mean, that was all stuff that was off mic. But, so I got in the hot seat. And here's a footnote to this story. The year before, our friend Brian, the collector, and me were also in the hot seat in 2005. Both of us made it to the hot seat in 2005. And that story ended differently than this story, so I'm not going to give any spoilers here. But this was actually my second time in the hot seat. So, anyway, I just remember sitting down there and thinking, man, this is, like I said, the year before I had done it. And it didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. But so this year I was determined to change it. And I do remember looking up, because I would look up at Mike and Matt, and they were like the best cheerleaders anybody could have. I mean, they were like, remember Arsenio Hall and the Dog Pound, where people would just set up and pump their fists and like scream and holler? It was quite fun having them up there. But anyway, I come down and I sit next to Warrick, and introductions are made. And as you know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, there's a lot of softballs right at the front.
Right.
The early questions are all easy. What color was Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in Return of the Jedi? Oh, well, that's a tough one. I think that was actually a question, but I'm not sure.
But what's funny is Warrick Davis is answering his own. Like he'll answer it. Like he'll agree with you, or he won't, or he'll.
Or he will try to throw me off the scent.
Yeah.
Like as we got farther along, and here's something. There are a couple of questions I did remember. And
I remember the last one. I don't remember the others.
The last one I remember. The one that I remember, I had to use a life. Now, the lifelines for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you have phone a friend, you have 50-50, and then you have ask the audience. So, really, on the Star Wars version of this game, 50-50 is the only one that can really help you. Because they call it phone a stormtrooper. And what it does, it's some random phone that rings somewhere in the park, and somebody picks it up. And so you could have, Hazel from, North Dakota, who's 69 years old, asking them a Star Wars trivia question. That's a total waste of your time.
Ask the audience isn't a bad way to go.
No, because it polls the audience and you kind of get a read. But, and I think I did that one, and I definitely did the 50-50. But I didn't use the Stormtrooper lifeline.
Do you remember what you used lifelines for? Because I remember I was getting nervous when you were hitting those lifelines.
One question was, what color on a clone's armor denotes a sergeant?
Oh, right.
And
was it green?
It was green. And the only reason I knew that is because I'd played Battlefront. That's like the only reason.
I think that's why I remember that too. We used to play hours of Battlefront.
But this was but I did use the 50-50 on that. And when green was still a possibility, I took green.
Right.
I think I polled the audience once, but I don't remember what I used that for.
Yeah, I don't remember. But it didn't matter. You got it right.
Well, so, I'm just answering these questions, and for the most part, having very little difficulty.
Now, real quick, was the prize, was the grand prize and all that listed ahead of time?
Yes.
And
the grand prize, you don't win $1 million.
We'll save it. I still remember exactly.
No. Well, they
but
tell
the pressure
you,
was on because you knew what it was.
Yes, we knew what it was.
All right.
But as I'm going up the ranks, I win new prizes for every tier that I answer. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, man, you got a great prize, man.
Well, so that starts out small. You get some action figures, and then you get a book, and then, maybe you get some more toys. And the second to the last question, which I don't remember what that question was, but I won this replica of Darth Vader's TIE Fighter.
I see it in the camera right behind
which
you.
Is,
it's
that
right
thing
is sweet.
Yes. It's
weighs like 20 pounds.
It was really cool. And I was like, okay, well, that's awesome. And I remember thinking, if I can win that TIE Fighter, I'll be happy. And I won the TIE Fighter. Well, the question after the TIE Fighter was the 1 million point question.
And listen, now, we already said that the studio was a perfect replica of the actual TV studio. And I mean, it had all the lighting, the floor lighting, had all the bells and whistles, all the tricks,
spotlights that would move.
They dropped a little glycerin fog in there, so everything was like really dramatic, and it was exciting. Now I'll tell you, obviously the kid before Jared did not make it this far, and Jared was killing it. He was killing it, and every time he got a question right, we're going crazy in the stands, and our enthusiasm, me and Sith Lord, was contagious. The whole area around us started to really get behind it and really cheer him on. And he won that TIE Fighter, and people thought this could be it. This could be the chosen one. They started to feel it, and it was exciting. So we were super anxious, but we were really excited. But then the hush over the audience.
Yes.
The
and
hush.
They have the music,
And man, I was sweating. I wasn't even up there. I was sweating.
So, I know at this time, this is make or break. All my useful lifelines are done. So I'm truly out there on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the question was, well, there was one. Wait, what was? There was one question. I think this was where Warrick tried to trip me up, but it was
the final question. He tried to trip you up.
What was?
The battle droids designed after.
Yes. Okay. No, it said what? Yeah. What creature was designed for episode 1 but not used?
All right.
Until episode 2. And so there were several options, and I can't remember.
I remember what he said.
Yeah, he's like, well, you got the Toydarians.
Toydarians? I think
And
the
he goes,
Toydarians, I think, right?
Is it Toydarians? He's the one with the wings,
The
right?
wings, the Toydarians.
And I was
That
like,
has to be it, Jared. That has to be it.
well, it's like, well, you're. I said,
No. Let's not sell this one short. Jared,
you
Jared,
tell it better than I.
I'm not. Listen, we're watching and we're nervous because I'm thinking, Jared, he know this, but he's like, he looked right at work, almost dressing him down. What did you say?
I said, well, yes, Warrick.
That might be true.
That might be true, but the correct answer is B. Geonosians.
Geonosians. And of course.
And I said, and I just went final answer.
Final answer. Pause. Dramatic. Bam! Big winner.
Here come the confetti and balloons
Man,
drop from the ceiling.
Okay, so in this arena of nerddom, the place went nuts. It's almost like a Super Bowl was just won. People were losing their minds. There were fights breaking out. People were ripping out hair. It was pandemonium, but it was like, it was amazing. It was amazing. The Sith Lord and I were absolutely losing our minds.
Yeah, and I remember they said, okay, so the prize, the grand prize, was a Disney cruise. And the game show host said, well, are you going to take your buddies? And I was like, I don't know. I have to talk to my wife about that.
We did not go.
No, it's probably for the best because it was a very small room.
Yeah,
But
no,
there would have been room for you guys, but it would have been strange.
no, that was a heck of a. That was a very exciting. And it might not be translating as exciting as it really was, but it was an amazing moment. And when we walked out of that place, Jared was like a celebrity.
Yeah, I remember Sith Lord says, I feel like I'm in an episode of Entourage. because people were saying, hey, way to go, trivia winner. And, and that happened the rest of the day throughout the theme park. Because, there were hundreds of people in that room, and they remembered. And it was, I just remember, like, when the balloons started falling, I felt like I was having some kind of out-of-body experience. I was like, this can't be real. I cannot have just won this. And then, I got to stick around I had to go, like, sign some paperwork and stuff, and, Mike and Matt were nice enough to wait for me. But, what's funny is when I got back to the office and was signing the papers and stuff, they said that I was still in their system from last year, and you cannot win if within a 12-month period.
Oh,
And I had hit, but I was 13 months. Like I was just 1 month removed from not being eligible to win any of that stuff.
It's like a ringer.
I know. So I was like, okay. And then they let me take some pictures on the set, which unfortunately you were not allowed to take any pictures. However, my good friends, Matt and Sith Lord, with using a digital camera, were able to sneak some blurry shots of me in the hot seat with Warrick Davis sitting next to me. And when this show goes live, we'll have to upload those to our Instagram so people can see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they let me take a picture in the hot seat, like after the show was over. So that's the actual clear picture of me that I have of that event. But yeah, I got to say, it was like the crowning achievement of my nerd life. We took the cruise, me and my wife. We took the cruise in February of 2007, I think. And it was a great cruise. I mean, 100%. I didn't even have to cover the gratuity at the end of the cruise. Like, Disney covered that, too. So I was only out of pocket for, like, excursions and alcohol.
That's great.
And it was really amazing. It was a great time and a very fond memory I have.
Yeah, well, that was a great day, and that certainly was the best part of that day.
Oh, without question.
I remember even when you finally got home and you put together the TIE Fighter.
Yes.
Couldn't believe it. I mean, this model is spectacular. I don't know what brand it is, but it's just really something else.
It's from a company called Code 3. They no longer have any Star Wars licenses. I don't even know if they're in business, but it's quite a nice replica. And I still, as Matt says, it's still displayed in my office in here.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like it's the one tangible trophy I have from that thing. Because I did also get a very sweet Letterman's jacket.
Yeah, the jacket. You gave that, you donated that, didn't you?
I donated that to my friends over at the Retro WDW podcast. They actually displayed it at a meet and greet that they had over at Disney World back in the spring as part of, some ephemera from theme parks. So it's actually a museum piece now.
There you go.
But yeah, that was just a crazy story that I know Mike, our podcast host Mike, he always rolls his eyes when I tell that story, but since he had the trots tonight, I thought this is a good time for me and Matt to break it down for you.
And we have some other great Jared, Sith Lord, and myself stories from amusement parks that we'll share at some other point too.
Yeah, those were some good ones.
There's some good adventures we had that we'll share out.
Yeah, we'll share those out. But anyway, we want to thank you, everybody, for checking out the hyperspace this week. Of course, we hope to have Mike back with us next week. But Season 6 is rolling on, and we want to tease for you, hey, look for maybe some commentaries in the near future on some of our favorite movies. And, of course, our Lost coverage will continue this season. But and don't forget Cassian Chronicles coming sooner than you think. And just keep listening, keep enjoying, and we'll see you next time.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.